Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We have what might be our 13th video of this topic, but hey, information keeps coming out. Natasha versus Blake Horstman continued. Joe responds of grocery store fame, Chicago's pride. Joe responds, tomato sauce Joe, to the drama, sort of mocking it all, but still funny. And then Blake reiterates his stance as he feels like he's been mischaracterized by Natasha, and he's under saying, oh, no, I like these people. I'm just saying, don't, dip the pen in company ink. The whole point Blake has been making, if you guys haven't been following this story, is if you go on Bachelor in Paradise, the only advice I'm giving people is, if it comes down to you and somebody who has a podcast owned and operated by Bachelor producers, they're going to get a better edit, not you. That's just like saying, hey, don't go dating the boss's daughter or boss's son, for that matter. You're going to get in trouble, and we'll be making videos about it the whole way. Fine, I'll make a 7th video about this. Not like there's anything else happening in Bachelor Town.
Barrel scraping Dave.
And here we go. So let's get into it. I'm going to tell you guys what was said here by Blake, sort of doubling down on his point, and then what Joe said and Tia said, sort of mocking him, saying, oh, you think we're all big and famous and we have all this immunity? And it's like, well, that's an exaggeration of his point, but kind of. So let's get right into it. Here's just a quick update, the 208-minute mark here of what Blake initially said that set this all off. And I know some people go, oh my gosh, this is so stupid. Yeah, it is. New episodes premiere July 11th, 2022. That are slim, though. The only advice I gave them was to be careful of the official Bachelor podcast.
Be careful who you say.
Because the host, be careful of the official podcast host if they are down there. They are ABC employees and will always get a good edit. So don't go against them, or don't go chasing waterfall. Don't go chasing waterfall. So the point being is, he's not saying that the hosts are bad people. He's just saying be careful because they're going to get the better edit. Now, Natasha's response, wildly defensive. We love Natasha, but I think pretty much anybody who's watched these both said, hey, come on, that wasn't his point. Natasha's response, elaborating. Again, we heard what Blake said. It was relatively... Get to it, Dave. Factual, right?
Tip about it because it happened to me. So by saying that I'm going to get a good edit because I have a podcast, Clickbait, you could get a bad edit if you mess with me, and to be careful of me. And so you're basically villainizing me.
Okay, whenever you say you're probably conflating. Okay, so we've talked about that before. You're basically X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to exaggerate for my point to win. Now, Natasha, that's not what he was saying. So anyway, she kind of goes on, and now this week she's not on the podcast, probably doesn't want to deal with it. So here's what Blake has to say, just to reiterate, because it's important. If you feel misunderstood, rather than doubling down on what you first said, just reiterate. We're all humans. We can adjust. Oh, you didn't understand my tone? I apologize. Let me try to rephrase this, because the best thing you can do in communicating isn't necessarily getting your point of view out. It's getting it out so that the end receiver understands what you're saying. And here's Blake.
Experience on the show, or a bad one, it can be traumatic. And it's like a big moment in our lives. And you can have scars from it and bruises, whatever you want to call it. And I think I clearly poked one of those with Natasha. I did not mean to. I wasn't trying to villainize her. I wasn't.
He's saying he triggered Natasha.
Trying to, I don't know, stand up for Brendan or any of the other things she said. That was not my point. I was just very broadly saying, I think it is
Did you just call her a broad?
A conflict of interest for hosts to go down to the beach. And so I don't want to diminish her feelings, because she clearly feels like I attacked her somehow, or I villainized her, but that was not my intention. And I apologize if that's the way it came across, but I didn't even think this was a hot take.
Now, he goes, I didn't even think this was a hot take. I love it. By the way, Blake, bad apology in the sense that you said, if I did this to you, then I'm sorry. And again, you don't even have to apologize. Let your words, and I think Blake's doing this. When you're impeccable with your words, one of the 4 agreements, when you say what you mean and mean what you say, you should be able to stand by it. Now, not to say you can't still offend people or whatever. And I think it's fine that he's apologizing, but at the same time, his words are out there. he said them. You can watch it. You can listen to it. You can check out my 7 different videos on the take. He has all the points, and it's his opinion, and in no way is he trying to villainize Natasha. And she's the only one of anyone who went on the beach that had anything to say about it. And yes, he did use her as an example, I think twice. Someone had said this earlier on. Someone got a rose from producers, but this is one of 2 occasions where the producers gave her a rose because she got so royally stiffed, and they wanted to see her love story play out. That's okay, but that is sort of a conflict of interest when you know that these are people that are paid. Put it another way. Let's take another show like Survivor. What if some of the contestants on Survivor also had a podcast by the Survivor producers called Surviving Survivor? You'd say, hey, that's not really fair. Now, obviously, this game show, Bachelor in Paradise, isn't Survivor. They're not playing for $1 million, but there is something on the line. They're playing for building equity in their brand, trying to be more likable and those types of things. And if that's part of the mission to go on the show, which probably it should be, you want to find love, but at the same time, you want to build any opportunities you can, then you want to make sure you don't get in trouble with somebody who's paid for by the show.
I think like when 90% of the audience agrees with you that it is a conflict of interest, I don't see how like this is like an unpopular opinion.
He said 90%. Now 90% is a bold claim. I would suggest it's at least 90%. I have heard some people defend Natasha here, but we hear his words. So it's not how Natasha's receiving it so much as she can receive it however she wants. But what he said was pretty accurate.
You know what I mean? Whether you have
So he apologizes there. Here's and then we'll play the clickbait response. And here's Nick. Nick was talking about it. We know Nick and Blake have some sort of odd beef.
He
Not
always
the
gets
podcast.
attention, not the podcast. I think he said it on.
That's a nice
Did he say it on
specification.
Instagram or his podcast?
This was on his Instagram story.
Okay.
And then
He does always get press when he does.
then
this stuff.
continued it because Game of Roses, which is not one of the official podcasts, but
So Nick didn't mention Game of Roses by name last episode. We always try to mention podcasts by name because it's always good to get to the source. And so I wonder if I feel like, and I think this is natural, I feel like there's some sort of beef brewing between alumni who cover the show and fans who cover the show. We need a term for people who cover the show that aren't alumni. I think Game of Roses actually has a term for that. But either way, little bit of a behind the scenes power struggle between popular podcast Game of Roses and Nick Viall.
a Bachelor podcast, posted on Instagram. And then he decided to comment on Game of Roses post that Natasha was, quote, given a rose by production.
True. All right, so
Which
stuff
I'm
we've
like,
already
yeah,
covered. Stuff we've already covered. So we got this video from yesterday, I believe, right? From yesterday. And then here's today's response by Grocery Store Joe on their podcast. Have a listen. I got the whistle. We're gonna
What's
judge
up,
this.
everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Clickbait. Kids, if you're lucky enough, one day you could be a host of one of these podcasts, and it will grant you the gift of immunity, and if you're lucky enough, even make you a gigantic star.
Now, I appreciate sarcasm and I appreciate sort of enlarging of something. Obviously, immunity and becoming a large star would be an exaggeration of Blake's point, but I, as the comedian in me, always appreciates when we extend the point to a mocking level.
Just look at Tia and myself.
So grateful.
Right, Tia?
So Tia goes, so grateful. Now, here are the facts that we know. They get to do a web podcast from wherever they are in the world and make 6 figures each. That's what we know, right? So it's not about being famous so much as it's a pretty lucrative deal. Now, there's plenty of Bachelor podcasts that are not owned and operated by the Bachelor producers that make more than that build their own equity. The Caitlyn Bristows are making way more than Clickbait. But Clickbait, they get a check from Disney, from ABC, weekly, bi-weekly. They don't have to worry about ad sales. They get to hit the red button, sometimes pay attention, sometimes not. And that's okay. I would be as apathetic towards the situation if I were them too. But I'm not. I have my own channel that the success is only due to whatever hustle I put into it. And that's where the people like Blake, myself, and others that aren't, I would say sucking the teat of Bachelor Nation, producers that is, they have to kind of like figure it out themselves. Now, that's perfectly fine that they got this deal. When it's over for them, they have to start all over versus having built something up on their own, and that's the risk you pay.
How famous do you feel?
so grateful for this podcast. I couldn't do it without it, you know?
I got you. I feel the same way. Okay. So
It's so funny though, but they're obviously making fun of this situation, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, they really should be so grateful for that podcast. We have Grocery Store Joe, a night one guy, got voted out. Because he got voted out night one, people liked him so much because they wanted to hear his story more, that he got brought on Bachelor in Paradise. And it goes back and forth, but good for them for making money by being on a dating reality show. Good for them. And good for Blake for understanding the risks that are involved. And he didn't even think it was a hot take. Will the story continue? My guess is yes. My guess is that Blake recorded before Nick's podcast came out yesterday. And when Nick's podcast came out, I'm sure Blake's going to want to have to respond in one way or another. We're going to be going live today, 10 a.m. Pacific time, patreon.com/Dave Neal. And also, that's on the Patreon for private membership only content. And also, we're going to be going live later on this afternoon on Dave Neal's show, covering and recapping today's what's going down in the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial. It's on like day 19. It's got like 1 week left. Next week, I'm in Chicago, Friday, Saturday night. I'll be speaking at DePaul University, the Bachelor class. Looking forward to that. I didn't even do with this. So my views don't change whatsoever, that Blake is in the right for saying what he said, and he's even in the right even more so for addressing it and apologizing for any harm that was caused, even though he didn't think it was a hot take. Point goes to Blake. All right, but we still love Natasha, but we just obviously, he struck a nerve. All right, we'll talk to you guys in a little bit. More content coming your way. We got a Kendall video. Speaking of it's Grocery Store Joe Thursdays. We have a Kendall video. Talk to you guys in a bit. Bye, guys.